Hey guys, I'm gonna go ahead and introduce you to my first episode of Sleeping with Byrne. And if you guys are wondering as to why I may be talking like this is an ASMR video, and this is experimental. For more information, you can look at the description down below. But the idea of this video is it's supposed to be relaxing, and it's supposed to help all of you guys sleep that are having trouble. So it's not really about what I'm talking about, it's more about the idea of ASMR. So, please leave a thumbs up if you like this video, and a thumbs down if you don't. And please feel free to leave a comment and, discuss something you think could be improved, or feel free to share your thoughts. But anyhow, this is experimental. So, anyhow, let's go ahead and go on with it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of my early years in college. This is back when I was about 20 years old. And, I was kind of new at it all. But the thing I'm going to get into is me going to China for the first time and learning Chinese, and I'm going to talk about what got me interested in it. Back around 2012, I was getting tired in my hometown, and I just felt that I had to go somewhere else around the world. I just wanted to get a break, go travel, have an adventure. So I looked at trips from, tours from my university, because I would not have dared ever want to go off and do it by myself. And before that, I always loved Asian food, always liked Chinese food. I always thought China looked really beautiful, and it looked like a really cool place. I never thought that I would actually start learning Chinese, but what happened was I was super interested in visiting China, and I saw a flyer on the wall at my community college. And I ended up making a phone call, and I talked to the teacher, who was a tour guide. She invited me into her office, and we had a little chat. She was from China. She was from Tianjin, which is, I don't know, like an hour and a half southeast of Beijing. It's a cool city. And she had been teaching at my community college, TCC, Tulsa Community College as we call it. She had been there for a long time. And she had taken many students over to China on guided tours. What ended up happening was that she talked to me for, a few minutes or so. We talked about the tour. And apparently it was I think it was like a 2-week tour. It started in Hong Kong, and then it was going to go to Shenzhen and then Guangzhou. So I went ahead and signed up for that. And she was like a super, super nice woman. I mean, she liked me a lot. And we had a really close relationship with each other. I wasn't interested in learning Chinese at the time, but she was so convincing. She seemed like such a nice woman that I decided to take her Chinese 1. And despite me having difficulty, I pulled an easy A in her class. When I first started taking it, I really liked the characters, the writings, that, like in the calligraphy with the paint. And at first it seemed really hard, but when you start looking at it more carefully, you see that the calligraphy is like a picture of what it means. So like the character for mountain is literally shaped kind of like a mountain. And there are other characters like tree, there's big, there's small. And if you look at the traditional characters, if you understand what it means and you look at how it's drawn top to bottom, it starts to make a whole lot more sense to you. Anyhow, I started taking Chinese 1, and it was like a wonderful class. I liked my classmates, and um, I was learning the language really fast when I started to understand it. And she wasn't really impressed with how fast I could learn Chinese, given the fact that Chinese is one of the hardest it's one of the hardest languages for an English speaker to learn. Part of the reason it's so hard is because they have 5 different tone marks. Like if you say ma, ah, ma, ah, ah, each of those are with a different tone, which makes it have a totally different meaning. There's a ma for a horse, there's a ma for your mom, there's a ma for a question particle. And, well, you want to make sure you pronounce it right. Most Chinese could still probably understand what you're trying to say, but you would definitely sound like you've got a strong accent, like you're not actually from there. But of course, I'm not. Anyhow, on forward, I started learning Chinese a little bit more, and I got more interested in Chinese. I became interested in everything Chinese, Chinese food, Chinese culture, Chinese fashions. However, the trip that was originally to Hong Kong didn't make because there weren't enough people. And it was a school tour, but the teacher knew that I wanted to go to China enough that she invited me on a more personal tour. Me and one other student, we went to Beijing and Tianjin just on a private tour, which was pretty cool. And yeah, we had such a great time. But anyhow, getting to China wasn't easy because I needed a visa. It's not like going to Hong Kong or Japan where you can just go with your passport for X amount of days. We had to get a visa. And luckily my teacher did it for me. But what we had to do was book the flights in advance. We had to book the hotels, the rail tickets. We had to be very clear on how we're getting from point A to point B. And we had to provide all of the information. And then we had to send the passport to Houston, Texas, to the consulate. And from there, I think it was like $140 or something to do a Chinese visa. But anyhow, we got it done. It was a hell of a lot of work, but we were able to do it. We got the visa, it came back to me, and a couple weeks later, we went to China. We went to China. It was me, the teacher, and then there was a girl that went with us. We flew to Beijing. That was the longest flight I had ever flown in my life. San Francisco to Beijing. It was like 13, 14-hour flight. Very, very long. So, and I fly economy class. I don't ever fly first class because that's just really expensive. But yeah, flying economy. You save a lot of money, but the seats get very uncomfortable. But I watched some movies on the way to Beijing, which was fun, and I had a good chat. And the people sitting next to me on the plane were super nice. I was very scared when I was going to China for the first time because there were a lot of bad rumors about China, like oppression and communism, and like, you say this and you say that, you'll be beheaded or whatnot. Just a lot of bullshit. But I arrived in Beijing. At first, they were doing kind of a tight security check. They wanted to see my passport and all that stuff, but so I went through them. I was scared to leave the teacher because I was in like a place on the other side of the world as a young kid, and I knew nobody there. My Chinese was very limited at that time, and thought that if I got lost there, I'd be lost forever. The teacher took pretty good care of me, though. She booked our bus tickets, hotels, and all that stuff. We even did a homestay for a couple of nights. We arrived in Beijing, and when we got there, we had to stand in a long security line. After that, we took a shuttle, like a shuttle bus, which was like an hour and a half down to Tianjin. When we made it to Tianjin, we met my teacher's mother. It was like an old woman up in her 70s. Super nice. And we met the mom. She took us back over to the teacher's sister's house. And she had like an apartment building with a kitchen. There were 2 bedrooms. One was like for her. One was for Emily, the girl that was with me. And then they had a couch that I got to sleep on. So yeah, we homestayed a couple of nights. But there were 2 nights I stayed in the homestay. The other 4 that we were in Tianjin, because we were in Tianjin a total of 6 days. I stayed at like a somewhat decent hotel. I was in Mao Square. And I liked that a lot better because I had a private room. And I got to sleep in a nice bed. I didn't really like sleeping on the couch in someone's living room at a homestay. I remember Emily, the girl I was with, got really homesick because we were in a land where we knew nothing. Nobody spoke English. We knew how to get nowhere. And when I was in the homestay, I listened to my Chinese teacher with her mom and her sister all sitting at the table speaking Chinese. And I was like sitting near them and I'm like, where the hell am I? Where's my culture? Where's my family? Where's everybody that I know? So it was very awkward at first. Yeah. But later on, we get up the next morning. We go outside. We eat breakfast. I think I had one of those youtiao breads. And I'm not kidding. They're super cheap. They're like, I think I paid like 10 cents for it. Not even. And then I had bean curd soup. I think they give you like some spices, some soup or something. You know, you can dip the youtiao bread into it, take a bite. It's really good, and surprisingly, I paid less than $1 for breakfast, and I thought it was incredible that I was eating for less than $1 US. Because you know, back in the US, it was 2013. We're paying like $1, something like $1.20 for a candy bar at that time. So yeah, it was pretty amazing that we were eating a meal, like a real meal, for less than $1. We went out later, and I couldn't believe it. There were people everywhere that like wanted to get a picture with me because they had never seen an American boy before. Somebody with like red blonde hair. You know, everyone there is Chinese, and in Tianjin, some of them had only seen Chinese people, never a foreigner. So there would be like people lining up to take a picture with you. Incredible. And people were also super nice. Like some people would want to buy you food. There might be people that let you eat for free at their restaurant. But yeah, there's just tons of people that want to come up and talk to you. It's incredible. When I first got there, and when I was out the next day, realizing that China was actually a really friendly place, I just couldn't believe it. I started understanding that you cannot know the true China until you actually go yourself. There was a teacher with like her class of 20 kids. They wanted a photo with me. There were even some old people that wanted photos with me. Oh yeah, and I remember like there were girls that like flocked on me at that time. It was awesome. I met this really pretty girl called Wong. Her name was Wong Rui, and she was like the manager of a jewelry store, like super young, super beautiful. I'll never forget that. And we went out a couple of times, and she became kind of like my girlfriend. You know, she came back to my place. I'm not gonna get into any of the stuff we did or anything like that, but you know, she was wonderful. She took really good care of me. We went out to eat. She made Tianjin be a really wonderful place for me, and I just felt so happy. Each day in Tianjin was remarkable. We saw everything there, like we saw like different food streets. We went to Haihe River. We went to a water park. Different shopping malls. It was fun. Oh yeah, and there was a Tianjin museum. Wongrui went with us one day, and she was my guided tour, kind of. I did stuff with her. It was fun. And the thing is, at that time I had never really had a girlfriend before. I mean, sort of. But like back in the US, I had never had a girlfriend on the same level as what I had in China. It's like I didn't know how a real relationship works before I went there. So Wang Rui was special. She'll be remembered for the rest. When I was going to Beijing, one of my saddest moments was saying goodbye to Wang Rui because she stayed behind. You know, I had to say goodbye to her, and I was just crying because I was on cloud 9 for the entire time I was with her. Yeah. I said goodbye to her at the train station. And then there was like music playing. It was kind of, I think there was like the Kiss the Rain song. You guys want to look up Kiss the Rain by Iruma? That song was playing. And it was kind of sad, and it fit the situation I was in of saying goodbye to Wang Rui. So yeah, it made me cry even more. And I shouldn't be getting emotional, but I was just crying real hard when I had to say goodbye. But anyhow, we went to Beijing. I remember in Beijing, people, we first got to a mall and people were a lot more aggressive with you in Beijing in terms of trying to get you to buy shit and whatnot. I guess Beijing's a lot more expensive than Tianjin, so people are more determined to get your money and things like that. But yeah, I remember it was funny. We were at a mall, and I didn't know how to say no at that time. So there were like people that would grab my hand and try to sell me shit. There was like a stupid robot that could dance, and they were basically saying, "Why don't you pay $100 and get this?" And I'm like, "No," and like, "Okay, $70." And the fact that I could bargain, you know, I became more inclined to buy it because the fact that they would lower the price made me think that I could get a good deal. And I ended up paying like $20 or something for what they wanted $100 for, and I thought it was a good deal for that But it really wasn't. I didn't need no stupid dancing robot. And then after I buy it, then they want me to buy this like flashy car or whatever, toy car. And, you know, I bargained for that too. And I ended up buying like 4 things off of that girl that kept trying to get me to buy shit. You know, now basically, I'm a lot more assertive, and I would just stand up and like look her straight in the eye. No. And then that's pretty much it. But anyhow, I bought a lot of shit that I didn't need to, but oh well. Gave me some Christmas presents to give to cousins and things like that, so it was cool. And it's funny, like, I did end up buying a lot of stuff in China the first time I was there. In Beijing, we saw the Great Wall, and then we saw the Forbidden City. We saw the Great Wall with a tour guide, and it was a lot of fun. I couldn't believe I was walking the real Great Wall of China, but of course it's really just a wall. I mean, I wouldn't say it's necessarily the most fascinating thing you could see. When I got to Beijing, I got a phone call that night from Wang Rui, and I was like, how the hell did she know how to call my hotel? And what ended up happening is she said that she'd be coming to Beijing the next day. And I just couldn't believe it. She left Tianjin to come see me in Beijing. That gave me an extra 2 days with my sweetheart, right? So the next day I went to the Great Wall. I was with Emily, classmate. We went with a tour guide. We took a bus. We saw the scenery. There was a lot of pollution there at that time in Beijing, but it was still pretty. When we got to the Great Wall, it was kind of funny because you look south toward Beijing and you see there's a lot of smog. But if you look north, the skies are blue. And you see the smog disappearing. So it's pretty cool how the Great Wall is sort of like a barrier between what's polluted and what. But yeah, anyhow, there were a shit ton of people on the Great Wall that wanted to get a photo with me. I mean, that was nonstop. I went in May, so it was maybe a little bit chilly at that time. Nothing bad. It was like 60s or 70s. Yeah, the next day, or no, that day in the evening, I got back from Great Wall. Couldn't believe I had seen it. Wang Rui showed up at my hotel room, and she was just a really, really playful girl. I'm not kidding. She had a real sense of humor. She was childish in some ways, I guess you could say. She liked to laugh. She liked to tickle, things like that. I'm not gonna get into any of the stuff she'd want to do in bed, but you know, I think some of you guys have the idea of what I'm talking about. But anyhow, the next day after Wang Rui had come, we went to Forbidden City together. The Forbidden City was huge, huge. You know, you could not see the whole Forbidden City in one day. You would probably need 2 or 3 days of like 8 hours if you want to see everything there is there, because it's gigantic. But yeah, there's a map they'll give you. The Forbidden City is probably as big, if not bigger, than the Louvre Museum in France. But yeah, they'll give you a map. I think we paid like 60 yuan at the time, the equivalent of like $10. It might be more now, maybe 100 yuan. I don't know, but I'm sure it's gone up. But yeah, Wang Rui and I could not tour the Forbidden City, all of it, in one day. We could only tour part, and we had to make determinations about what would be best. After Forbidden City, man, we did a shit ton of walking. because you have to walk a lot in Forbidden City. So we burned a lot of calories. We went for lunch. I think one day we actually went to a McDonald's for lunch, which is ironic that you'd want to go eat at McDonald's while you're in China. But yeah. As well as that, we also came back, watched some TV. Later, we went to the mall, we got some ice cream, all that stuff. They had Baskin Robbins over there. Funny. Like, if you guys know Baskin Robbins, they got plenty of those in China. Cool. Also, let's see what else they had. They had like just tons and tons of good food there. They had dumplings. They had like these steamed dumplings, like with the thick flour, and they had like a vinegar soy sauce you dip them into. Some would be filled with vegetables, some in meat. I mean, they were all just so good. You could not beat them. They had just so many different great foods in China. And when you eat real Chinese food, what they give you in China, you'll like never want to eat at Egg Roll Street again. I mean, I go to a Chinese restaurant here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I'm like, isn't real Chinese or anything like that. Yeah. Anyhow, aside from that, I'd like to go back to where I was. Wong Ray and I had one last good night together. And early in the morning, we got up, had breakfast at the hotel. And that morning, there was a shuttle bus that came to take us to the airport because that's the day that I left China to go back to the US. And I did not want to leave China because I was happier there than I had ever been back home. I wanted to stay there forever, be with Wong Ray. But the problem with that is that I had no way to support myself, no job. I had no family there, and maybe Wong Ray would have let me stay with her, but I didn't really have a place to stay there, and as well as that, my visa was going to expire. So I had to go home. And yeah, at the shuttle station, I had to say goodbye to Wong Ray, and I mean, I was crying because Wong Ray was like the best thing that ever happened. But anyhow, I'm glad that I've learned to not catch feelings like that. I can focus a lot more on things that need to be done. Anyhow, at the shuttle station, I said goodbye to her. I was crying real hard, as I mentioned before. We shared like a last little goodbye hug and all that stuff. I was reluctant to let go of her and get on the shuttle. I cannot tell you how much I hesitated. And the teacher had to nag me a lot in order to get me to board, because I wanted to stay there with Wong Ray. The teacher and Emily both almost had to pull on me some to get me to, leave. So I did. I was carrying a backpack. We were in a hurry to catch our flight, and I was moving real slow because I just didn't want to go. And I remember Emily, the other girl, was like, "Come on, we're gonna miss our flight." But I didn't really want to catch the flight, but I did. So yeah, I got on the flight. I went back home, and yeah, it didn't feel good to be back home, because it's like back in China I was this star, but back at home, why don't we just say I was, lower status, I guess you could say. So but as well as that, I just there were just so many things to miss about China, like especially Wangray. But I also missed the food. Um, I missed a lot of the culture. I missed so much about it. And every day I was dreaming about going back. I even started working a job later to save up money. You know, I continued taking more Chinese classes with my professor at Tulsa Community College, and I became much more fluent in Chinese to where the next time I went back, 1 year later, I was much more fluent. Got to see Wong Rid, and yeah, I was really happy. Anyhow, I'm glad that I got to share this experience with you guys, and I hope that it's a story that puts a lot of you to sleep. Thank you guys so much for watching my video, and if this was helpful at all, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and leave a comment below. Stay tuned till next time. Thank you.